I had to kind of wing it on my own. So I don't ever let her forget it.
Don't big her up over me or yourself. We are far more inspirational being mums on our own.
Behind that perfect lady that is making herself out to be that perfect, as struggles that actually nobody else sees.
There's just something going on, which is one, very difficult to talk about, two, very hard to find advice for. She lifted her arms up to put her handbag up on the back of the door, and just that action meant that her bladder just emptied out, and she was mortified. That's an accepted norm that when they're skipping, they're going to pee themselves. It's not normal. But I get through my entire fitness journey, training as hard as I have, after having had 4 children and have done it incorrectly this entire time.
Hi, I'm Chinwe. This is a podcast where we dive into the inspiring journeys of ordinary women who dare to break free from traditional career norms, defying social expectations to follow their passions towards a meaningful purpose. In a world often captivated by the glitz and glamour of celebrity stories and achievements, it is essential to recognize the quieter yet equally powerful stories that unfold in the lives of everyday women. And so my guests on this podcast are women who reflect the realities of your own daily lives and whose transformations will truly resonate with you. So be prepared to be inspired, because you will be reminded that the things you are naturally passionate about could be your calling, and that we can all experience greater happiness and freedom in our daily lives when we allow our passion to lead us to a purpose. This is Beyond 9 to 5. Hi, Lou. Hello.
Hi.
How are things at Holcomb?
They're good, thanks. Yeah, they're really good.
Yeah.
Yes.
You run baby massage classes. Do you?
Baby massage, baby yoga,
Yeah.
reflexology for babies. So yeah, we're quite involved in mother-baby bits.
And do you do those yourself, or do you have
I've been trained in
therapists?
them, but I have a therapist that does them.
Right.
So if I need to stand in, I can do.
Yeah.
So I have the ability. I have my own little baby doll.
Yeah.
Not a real one,
You
obviously.
practice with.
Yeah, exactly.
Can I just ask, in what situation would one want to bring their babies for a baby massage? I'm sure it's great for the babies, because I mean...
Honestly, the bonding. So I think as a new mum, we're constantly yearning for company, support, friends in that quite isolating time.
It is very isolating.
It's quite scary, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's all into the especially the first time, that unknown.
Yeah.
So what we do is offer the opportunity for them to come and meet and be there together and get friendship groups and support. And we've had some great friendships created from those classes.
Yeah.
Time out. The babies absolutely love it. They can go from really whingy little baby to quiet and fast asleep. So it's that opportunity. There's a cup of tea and a biscuit and a friendly chat and some advice. They can weigh the baby if they wish. But just that bonding between parent and baby is so invaluable.
Because it's very easy to feed the baby, put it down, go get dinner, go da-da-da-da, pick it up again, feed it, put it down, go da-da.
And where's the enjoyment?
And where is the enjoyment of just being with your baby? I mean, that's
taking that
remarkable.
time.
Do you know what? Weirdly enough, I hadn't actually thought about it that way. I thought it was like some kind of therapy for the babies, because they're not, but it's more than that, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you're adding all the emotional, the touchy-feely.
Yeah.
So it's all about getting the baby to move. You know, sometimes they can be a little bit fixed. You know, they might have had a traumatic birth, so they may need a little bit of additional help. Yeah. And getting them to relax. It
helps
fabulous.
with colic, is that right?
Really helps with colic.
Really?
Yeah, so there's different positions, and massage especially, but the yoga is a little bit more physical for the mum, but nothing major. Just getting you moving with the baby involved with it too. So lovely times, really lovely classes.
And Holcomb is right in the middle of Rochester, near Rochester High Street, isn't it?
No, not near the High Street, kind of a little bit further out.
Okay.
So out of town.
Yeah,
That
means it's quite accessible, isn't it?
Really accessible.
Yeah.
Got loads of parking, so great for pushchairs.
Yeah.
So it means that mum can have that bit of serenity, that bit of time with the baby, and there's no judgment. If the baby cries, it's fine.
Space,
absolutely fine. So
I wish I had that when I had my kids, because I did feel quite isolated.
Yeah.
Traditionally in Nigeria, right, when you have a baby, your mum is supposed to come and visit, and they're supposed to stay with you for months to help you ease into the routine, because they've done it before, right? So that is standard. That's normal.
Wow.
And all of my sisters had that, right? But because I was in the UK at the time, and obviously my mum couldn't come, I had to kind of wing it on my own. Yeah. So I don't ever let her forget it, right? Never.
Yes, you owe me.
Yeah, exactly. So I have been, getting my way for a while now because of it, but I honestly really needed that at the time, but I didn't. And at the time, my husband and I were just up and coming, new doctors in the UK, very new in the UK as well, especially with Ola. So we didn't know anybody. I didn't even know that stuff like this existed. So our guest today is quite familiar with all things woman, basically. She's an experienced physical trainer and really, really powerful human being, I have to say, right? And I say this because she was born in South Africa and started out quite early in her fitness journey, in her teenage years, working in the fitness industry from around 16, 18 years old. And then she moved to the UK when she was just 19, right? How
that's amazing,
I know,
yes.
right? So that already tells you
she's
what
got
kind
courage.
And over the following 25 odd years, she has accumulated huge amounts of experience in the fitness industry. So I am quite keen for our listeners and viewers to hear from her today. She's a mum of 4 kids and she's raising her kids on her own. But she recently got involved with and trained in this particular technique called hypopressives.
Okay.
Never heard of it until the day I met her.
Yeah.
But I can't wait for her to tell us all about it, right?
It's an amazing regime.
Yeah. And specifically it works on your core pelvic, because this, as women, our pelvic, especially if you've had babies, speaking of babies and new moms, it does take a bit of recovering.
Absolutely.
Basically, once you've had kids. So this hypopressives technique works very well for that, as well as in all other situations. But we'll get her to tell us more about it later on. So please welcome your ordinary yet extraordinary girl next door, whose lifelong passion for female empowerment drives her personal and professional growth as she single-handedly supports her family while growing her business and helping other women make the most of their own lives. Let's welcome Francoise De Smet. Come on in, Francoise. Where's our applause? We should have an applause for it, because honestly, it feels like...
lovely clap. So cool. Hi, ladies.
Hi.
Nice to see you.
Did you get here okay? Or was it a bit of a...
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
A journey.
Everything's always a journey, isn't
Yes.
it? I truly believe we're always exactly where we're meant to be.
Exactly.
So even when you're stuck in traffic, there's no point getting upset.
Yep.
You're always where you're meant to be. So
Just breathe and take it easy. Yes. Exactly.
yes.
Francoise, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. Basically, this podcast is about ordinary women putting forward their stories, right? Because what we want to achieve here is for people to have relatable, inspirational content and stories, right? So that they can, in a way, translate it into their own lives and be able to work on something that they think is that they know is achievable. So I want to kind of unpick your journey because it's very interesting. You started in South Africa, right?
I actually started in Belgium.
Okay,
with
I
the
told you guys.
And
This is
Next level.
to my chocolate addiction.
That's it. You're done for.
I'm done for. And this is the only only reason I went into the health and fitness industry is because I was trying to combat the fact that I was a chocoholic.
So, okay,
I was 2 years old when we moved to South Africa.
Really?
So I may as well have been born there.
Yeah.
So my roots do stem back to South Africa. If I talk about going home, it's not Belgium, it's South Africa.
What was it like growing up in South Africa?
I was lush. It was... the sunshine just makes all the difference. It was tough. My mum was a single mum and she had to work many jobs just for us to be able to make ends meet. So it was a lot of aftercare clubs, but aftercare club was the recreation centre next to the public pool. So it was a nice experience. I enjoyed my childhood. When I think of my kids, I do wish I could give them more of what I had when I was growing up, for sure. So it was bliss.
So how did you get into fitness?
I think my mum joined a big gym when I was about 14. So it was early years of my teenagehood. We're always active. That's the bonus of growing up in South Africa. It was all about, the school was huge. There was a rugby field, there was a tennis court, there was a football field, there was an athletics track, all separate fields, your own swimming pool outside. We were always active. But when she joined the gym, it was a particularly nice one in that it was easy to go. We could go as teenagers and I just fell in love with it. And just continued going throughout my teenage years. And when I finished high school, going to on to university was not an option with her being a single mum. My sister was a nanny. So I did a short childcare course and became an au pair I did it for a good year and a half, worked for a fabulous family. It was a beautiful opportunity. I got to go to America twice for a month at a time. It was awesome. But it did make me realize that it wasn't for me. Looking after children is not, I'm great with adults, children, as much as I love them. Clearly, I ended up having 4. I didn't want to be doing it as my passion. And I was sitting in the gym one day going, what shall I do? And I'd had a really good rapport with one of the trainers. She came down the stairs. Literally, as I was thinking that, I was like, I'll be like her. And that was it. I did a personal training course.
Wow.
At the age of 19, and then shortly after came to the UK.
Yeah. And what made you come to the UK?
I was aiming for Belgium.
Okay.
I wanted to learn to speak French fluently.
Right.
And my grandparents, and be closer to my grandparents. They used to come to South Africa for a month at a time every year. I really wanted to be closer to them, and I've always wanted to learn to speak French fluently. But my sister was in the UK, so I thought, I was so young. I thought, I sold my car. It was my ticket to the UK. I'll start in the UK. They speak English. My sister's here. I'll start here. I came. It was September 2000. And we went back to South Africa in Christmas time. And shortly after we came back in January, my sister realized she was pregnant. So she actually went back to South Africa because she was on her own and pregnant. And again, another really inspirational woman. But that was her journey. And of course, I was here and doing another transition. I had a job by then. I'd found somewhere else to live. And then, the rest is history. It's 24 years later.
Wow. Did you ever work in a standard 9 to 5 behind the desk job? Or?
Never. The closest I ever got to in terms of structured work hours, 9 to 5, and it was probably more like 8 till 6, was working with the kids and turning up in the morning and then driving them to school. There was never a working in an office situation. I only once in my entire life went to an interview. It was still fitness related, but it was to work behind a desk. And I walked in and I was just like, wow, I can't do this. I do think I went through the process of the interview, but I knew the moment I'd walked in, there was no ways I could do that.
I mean, that's really interesting because I've rarely met anybody who hasn't ever worked behind. Have you? You've worked behind?
I've worked.
A desk,
I was in the banking industry. I absolutely hated it. Wow. Paperwork and me just don't go.
Yeah, because one important thing that we try to discuss here is not just what you want to do, but what you don't want to do. Recognizing that early on and just calling it and just saying, this is not for me. And as much as possible, try to move on, basically, rather than staying in that position and be quite miserable.
And whether that's behind a desk on a 9 to 5 or any role that you're stuck in, if it's not filling your cup and you're not loving it, we have the ability to change it. 100% do.
Yeah.
I love what you're doing about sharing ordinary women who are inspiration, because it's true, and I hadn't thought of it that way. How her name was Paula, I think, because this was an awfully long time ago, feels, when it just struck me as like, oh, I'll be like her, because she inspired me.
Yeah.
She was part of my mentoring. The journey that I took 7.5 years ago came from the inspiration of Susie Ma, who started Tropic Skincare.
Yeah.
And these women were not necessarily, because it was such an age of social media, and unless you're an influencer on some sort of social media platform, you're almost insignificant.
Yeah.
And I was having the conversation with one of my closest friends on the weekend, where we were talking about social media, and she'd showed me somebody who is of influence and had really bigged them up. And I was like, don't big her up over me or yourself. We are far more inspirational being mums on our own, rocking, working, providing, not sticking to the norms of a 9 to 5, taking those risks. I'd rather show you to my daughters who are going to be massively influenced soon than the woman you've just highlighted, because she may have just got lucky and got a great big following because she's a beautiful young woman. And I was like, don't rate her over me.
Yeah.
Well, how dare you? Yourself. Because that's not who I want influencing my daughters when they're in a couple of years' time, when they end up being on a phone. I love that you're doing this. Thank you.
Francoise, you talk about one of the most non-talked about stuff, right? Which is our pelvic floor, right? The bit about, incontinence, about sexual dysfunction and all of that, right? Why do you particularly focus on that?
Good question.
In a good way,
absolutely. Yeah, well, I've decided that my tagline, after hearing somebody else introduce me as I'm the woman that helps women stop peeing themselves. That was like, and it worked. It makes everybody laugh, but it's so not funny. As women, we have to carry so much. We go through so many changes, even at a young age before we're postnatal and have had babies, with our bodies, the changes that we have to experience, the vulnerabilities that we're put into. And I don't disregard that men have their own journeys and their difficulties, and there is a lot that goes in with the entirety of them as a human being. But as women, we have a lot to carry. And it just seems unfair that we tend to have these huge transitions, especially with our body, whether we've had children or not, because even without having had children, we still go through menopause.
We do. Yeah.
And that shifts and changes our body so very much. We do physically have to work harder. Men are naturally stronger. They're naturally leaner. As women, we have got to work harder. And then when it comes to having these hormonal changes or having had a baby, the difference it makes to our core or our pelvic floor is huge. After all the things we've had to go through, why do we then shift into the stage of life that we're now struggling with things like incontinence or prolapse, which until I'd learned about hypopressives, because it wasn't in my experience, was really quite a shocker to me. It's like, this really happens? And we don't talk about it? How had I got to the age of well past my 40s and I didn't actually really understand what a prolapse is? And I've had 4 children. No one's had that conversation. No one's highlighted that I could be at risk or that this is a potential after having children. That's not okay.
No, that's not okay.
How did I get through my entire fitness journey, training as hard as I have, after having had 4 children and have done it incorrectly this entire time? The risk that we put our bodies under is huge. And that's where I find myself, is I just want to share that message. It's like, do all these things, because again, we're pulled into it by social media. You're like, wow, she had a baby 8 weeks ago, or the baby's only 6 months, she looks amazing. But they didn't talk about what's actually going on,
happening.
what she's experiencing, or the risks that she's potentially under in 5, 10, 20 or 30 years time.
Absolutely. And when those hormones kick in, as you say, or they don't kick in, which is the other end of the scale, isn't it? And the effect that has on that woman. And then that knock-on effect of self-esteem, embarrassment.
Exactly.
Having
that knowing that you're suffering from it. There's no one to talk to about it. There's no literature. Even your close friends don't talk about it. So where do you start? If you had that sort of symptom, where would you start?
hopefully you start by talking about it. You should be able to reach out. And essentially, like what we're doing here, if we're making it more of a norm, like we've done with menopause, and we talk about it more, hopefully it makes it easier for every woman to be able to go, actually, I do think I have a bit of an issue. Where do I turn to? Yeah. So it's about making it less of a taboo and helping them realize that there's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with you. And most importantly, something can be done.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be intrusive, because let's face it, nobody likes being looked at downstairs.
No,
sadly.
Absolutely. And also not accepting that it's normal. It's just one of those things. I'm older and it just happens.
Yeah. Or I've had a baby. It happens to a lot. In fact, a lot of it, incontinence can be quite common with young women who are particularly strong and active.
Right.
And then they have incontinence because their core has some level of dysfunction, and their pelvic floor can't take the strength of the surrounding core muscles. Like CrossFit is a big thing. It's such a fantastic way to exercise. It's got a huge element of community, but it's an accepted norm that when they're skipping, they're going to pee themselves. It's not normal. Something can still be done. And actually, it's a signal that there's something going on. And if you don't lay that foundation of supporting that pelvic floor, what kind of issues is that going to lead if she doesn't then end up having a baby, or further down the line has had a few babies, is still training? Because great, you want to do that. You want to encourage that because it brings so much to the overall well-being, but it's neglecting that the pelvic floor is actually taking huge amounts of strain. So it's the lack of information. I can't believe after having been in the industry for 25 years, I'd never heard of hypopressives. It made perfect sense to me.
No, I have never heard of hypopressives because...
Is it new?
No, it's been around since 1980.
Wow, isn't that amazing?
Yeah, that's what I said to you. I was like, is that a new technique or something? And Francoise was like, no, it's been around exactly
new to me.
So why have we never heard about it? Where's it come from?
That's a great question.
Tell us a bit about it, Francoise.
This is where I'm going to start sweating because I'm like, I don't remember all the facts properly.
No, we're not talking about the history, you know, because I know...
His name was Dr. I always say his name wrong. Kerfries, something like that. I think he's actually Belgian, or a Belgian took it over. It's had its journey where it was really big in Spain, and then it came to the UK with UK hypopressives, and they've been really good at getting more trainers, and then there's been other elements of training bodies that have built up. But when I came across it 2 years ago, just over 2 years ago, I had to really search for somewhere where I could learn the technique, because after looking online, I was like, wow, I'm not sure if I can get my head around this. And now there's an international hypopressives council that try and keep it regulated to a degree, so that hopefully it's building traction and getting more people on board. But again, it comes from talking, because when you say what's hypopressives, that's really difficult to explain. But when you talk about what it can help, which is usually where I go to, is like hypo what? So, let me talk to you about how it can help you. So essentially everything, but certainly when it comes to women's health and pelvic floor health, that is the cornerstone of where we're working from.
So fundamentally, what's involved? Is it like a kind of workout, or is it like what is it?
I like calling it a flow. As opposed to a workout. Essentially, it is an exercise, but it's more of a flow, because to me, exercise, you've got hot, sweaty, you need a shower, you need a sports bra. That's exercise to me. Hypopressives, you don't need a sports bra, you don't need equipment. You could do it in just within 10 minutes. You can do it in your knickers and bra if you want to. You don't need to shower afterwards. It's a very specific way of breathing. We're actually doing diaphragmatic breathing, because although we're talking about the floor, the pelvic floor, the diaphragm is the key point that we're working with, along with all the muscles that are surrounded and the fascia that are interlinked with the diaphragm and the pelvic floor and everywhere else in the body. It really does incorporate your entire system. So it's a specific way of breathing, initially in 8 static postures, like standing, bent over, on all fours, seated, laying down. So typical positions that we would have our body in. And as you progress through hypopressives, you then start adding movement so we hold our breath at a specific point through the breath work. And when you hold your breath, you create this vacuum. And that's where your diaphragm's doing the work and bringing everything along with it.
Oh, I see,
So it's learning that specific way of breathing. how to be comfortable in holding your breath at the end of an exhale and then letting your rib cage expand so that your diaphragm does the work in creating this vacuum, which then lifts your pelvic floor naturally. It also
takes the pressure off,
it
I guess.
takes the pressure off. It gets blood flow going. It's working your lymphatic system. It's activating your fascia, which, as you know, as a physio, how hard it is to get fascia to move because it's so slow moving. And by doing the vacuum breath, the fascia gets
naturally stretching it to work. It doesn't stretch, but to kind of lengthen it and with a contraction as well. So I was just thinking, as you said, it's a flow. It's a flow to stop the flow.
That's another tagline for you.
Yes.
Well, sadly, unfortunately, for some women, like they can't even identify that they have incontinence because it's not necessarily a flow of incontinence. It's the urgency or getting up in the middle of the night or just a little bit. My incontinence came from after a workout when I go and empty my bladder, pull up my knickers, thought I've emptied my bladder, and it turns out I hadn't. I was like, where'd that come from?
Mine's the front door.
Yeah.
I get to the front door and there's a signal that says,
I'm
it's
home.
time.
I'm home. You're safe. You can change.
No, not yet. Hold on.
Yes.
And it's like sometimes when you're doing strenuous exercise, like you said, skipping and
lifting heavy,
heavy, and you kind of go like, oh, okay, well,
was that meant to be there?
And even when you think that, I needed to squeeze a little bit tighter to be able to accomplish something, because people think, incontinence is like, I peed my pants and it's running down my legs kind of thing. But actually, it's if you're worried about it, guys, basically, that means that you should be looking at it, right? And be thinking, why is my brain in my pelvic floor all the time? Why am I constantly thinking
why am I thinking about my knickers?
About my knickers all the time? And for me, that is the threshold to start thinking, this is not normal. Hypopressive, it sounds easy, but it also sounds complicated because I'm thinking breath work and all of that. Many of us don't know how to.
And there are so many different elements of breath work. There are so breath work is definitely up on the agenda, I suppose.
It's becoming so much more important.
So it's going to be very different. It's different to any other breathwork sessions I've gone to, for example, because I know that there's ways that you can do breathwork to do all sorts of emotional release and exactly this in yoga. This is more exercise specific, even though it can release emotions, but we're not doing it with that purpose. We're doing it with the purpose of balancing your core and almost having that neuromuscular reset so everything works as it should, because our bodies are incredibly smart. It's just that we get into dysfunction, then we accept that dysfunction, we continue through that dysfunction, and then we create a bigger problem. But yes, it does have its challenges. The biggest challenges is people feel that they're doing it incorrectly, because I'm asking you to breathe in a very different way. I'm also asking you to slow down a lot. Most women who have ended up with a pelvic floor problem where they're constantly thinking about what's going on in their neck, is whether it is with incontinence and leaking, or they have the discomfort, because sometimes it can come from just a discomfort. They may not already have a prolapse, or they've noticing or something, they do feel different down there, or when they're having sexual intercourse, it's painful or feels different. There's just something going on, which is one, very difficult to talk about, two, very hard to find advice for, and it can just get to that perpetual cycle. And then we change our posture to accommodate that. You only have to think about what it feels like to be on your period, how we change the way, we don't walk out holding ourselves tall and proud. We kind of feeling, we want to be at home under a duvet and all that. So I just want to be left alone. And to be holding these discomforts in a day-to-day life can then start to change the way you move, the way you're sitting, the way you're standing. And I've gone on such a tangent that I forgot what my original point was. But essentially, there are so many things that we're experiencing that we can't make sense of. So when it comes to the biggest challenge, that's what it was. The biggest challenge is that we feel like we're doing it wrong. Am I doing the breathing correctly? Am I doing... And we've put so much tension in ourselves that just by listening to the teaching points of being in the positions and actually breathing. So even if they did nothing else, they didn't do any of the postures, and they just adapted the diaphragmatical breathing or just breathing, their pelvic floor gets a direct benefit.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
If we're tense and anxious, our pelvic floor 100% is following along.
Yeah.
And just coming from a physio point of view, actually doing the correct breathing will actually feed the rest of the body.
Exactly.
So actually we all tend to tense up, shorten our breath. It's very shallow. It's, you're not getting the same level of oxygen. Actually, that's so important to relieving stress, to relieving muscle tension, so many things. So it's not just about your knickers. It's not about the pelvic floor on its own in isolation. It's actually the whole body is affected.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And it's good for back pain as well, isn't it?
Yes, very good for
a lot of us suffer with back pain.
Yes, because again, where's the back pain coming from? Essentially, that's still your core, where you've got your diaphragm as the ceiling of your core and your pelvic floor as the floor. You've still got all those surrounding muscles, and whether the initial problem came from your pelvic floor or the diaphragm or your rectus abdominis or your psoas muscle, it doesn't matter really if there is something that you can do, which for me is I fully support that we all need additional help. We do. Like, I go to the chiropractor regularly. It helps it. It's one of my favorite humans in the world. But having a physio, having massage therapy, having a chiropractor or an osteopath, all of these practitioners place a huge role in our well-being and help us onto the path of well-being. But we also are responsible for making sure we're doing the best that we can in our everyday. So it's not about fixing. I don't have a magic pill. Just like Lou, I feel that we don't say, come on, let's get you on board. Let's get you doing all these things. It's about learning from us and going away and empowering yourself with a skill that you can take on forever.
Yeah. I love that approach about you, because you work with women from an angle of empowerment, right? And showing them a way to just take better control of their own health as well, because you don't just do the hypopressives, you kind of, especially because of your fitness background, you kind of take on the whole person, isn't it? And help them through. How long does it take? If I was to come to you now with a problem, how long would it take me to get some benefits from it?
How long is a piece of string? We're all so individual that I couldn't tell you. Yeah. It could be a matter of days. It could be after one session. It could take months. Yeah. Everybody is so different. And I've worked with quite a few women over the last 2.5 years, and I'm constantly blown away at how incredible the results are, but how individual they are all the women are. So my mum, she wouldn't mind me talking about her as an example. She's a great example. Also my biggest supporter. So the moment I'm doing anything, she's bang on board, which is lovely. I've always got a little case study following you and doing everything I do. But she did because I went through a few different processes to get the course that I've got together now. So she had done workshops, she had done the program I was running. And last year, last year, she had my niece and nephew, and they were camping for 2 weeks. So, of course, doing any form of exercise or flow went out of the window. And her incontinence, same as yours, Lou, was get to the front door and you've not even turned the key and the floodgates have opened. But unfortunately, she needed the toilet, and she'd gone into the public toilet because they were in camping. She had the two little ones standing outside waiting for her, and she lifted her arms up to put her handbag up on the back of the door, and just that action meant that her bladder just emptied out, and she was mortified. Yeah. She's got her grandchildren outside, and now she's literally flooded the floor. So now she stays on top of it, and she's been... She doesn't take many breaks. She's 70. So obviously depending on the stage that you are in life, just like with any exercise we do or practice we do, if you don't do it, you lose it to a degree. And for some people, they can do enough and it changes. They have that neuromuscular reset and it's enough, depending on what the issue was. Whereas older women may need to do it for longer. Yeah. So it's about finding it, again, empowering themselves and how can this fit into my life so I get enough benefit.
You would think that as a businesswoman, you'll go, oh, I'm not going to touch this. It's like, it's a hot potato, isn't it? Like, it's like really almost like a taboo subject to build your business on. Why did you push through that? Why didn't you go down the easier, I'm a fitness trainer?
I was on a really easy path.
Yeah.
I have a separate business which is selling natural skincare, which we all need. And I really believe in it because, again, what we put on and in our body is important to me. And I want to share that knowledge of look after your wellness, and our skin's just an integral part of our wellness as what we put in our bodies. And I think it was because the body is so important to me and how we respond to physical activity. And I prefer having things that can help us prevent things than when we get to the point where something's gone wrong. Yeah. So when I'd learned about it, because that's exactly what I was doing. I was creating a fitness app, and somebody asked me, will I have hypopressives because she had diastasis recti and she tried it before and she's quite keen to carry on doing. And I was like, hypo what? I'm not sure what that is. So I'm going to go with no. And then I'd spent the entire day looking into it. I was like, this is fascinating. Well, I need to do this now, don't I? And the moment I sat on that course, I was like, this happens to women? Yeah. Because we're talking about urine incontinence, which is already quite comfortable. I'd never heard the term fecal incontinence. Oh. Because if we're not talking about urinary incontinence, we're definitely not talking about fecal incontinence. It's like, that happens.
Yeah, and how scary is that? Yeah. Nobody's talking about that.
I'm horrified. I'm sweating just even talking about it now. And that's what makes the difference is that I don't want to be in that position when I'm later on in life and I'm worried about that. Why do we think our older generation decide to stop leaving the house? Yeah. We feel that when we're having a period. So I don't want my friends to have to go through that. Yeah. I don't want my daughters to go through that when they're older. I don't want my mum to be looked after and then we're changing her nappy because she's now no longer got control over this. I actually just don't think it's fair.
And the impact, the self-esteem that you must lose when you get to that situation.
Yeah.
Well, the self-esteem that we lose on the... How do you feel when you're opening the door and you're like, thank goodness I'm home?
Yeah. Absolutely.
But we still feel like, what's wrong with me?
It's frustrating, isn't it? Yeah. And I think it's the fact that you channeled this, I don't want this. I don't want this for me. I don't want this for anybody I know. And parceled it into a passionate drive to go make a difference about it. Is the point I'm trying to get across. It's about seeing a situation, which is a problem, thinking about what the solution would be, and go out there to be the solution of that problem. I think that is the most amazing, empowering story ever, right? Modeling around just going out there to be the solution to a problem, even if the problem is not a nice one, it's an embarrassing one, it's a taboo one, but it takes next level, I have to say, to kind of take it on, and I want to do something about it. That is just inspirational. Today's episode of Beyond 9 to 5 is brought to you by Health Mary. Ladies, let me introduce you to Health Mary app, the ultimate girl power health platform built for women by women. Connect with trusted female health practitioners who understand your unique needs. From fitness and menopause coaching to skin and nutrition, expert consultations are just a tap away. Health Mary interviews and screens every single one of their practitioners, so you can know that they are the best in the business of looking after you. The app isn't just a directory for finding the best female specialists. The Reels feature gives you instant access to a wealth of qualified content posted on the app by the top-notch professionals on there. This is not social media type of content. This is like a digital health magazine in your hands and on the go. And the best part is that it's free to download and join. So what are you waiting for, girl? Download the app and unleash the girl power inside to enhance your health and well-being. I think that you translated that even further because you are a part of a movement, a female-focused, you know where I'm getting to with this, a female-focused platform, right? Where we are able to talk to each other about health-related problem, right? And as part of this collaboration, you provide a pack for new moms where Francoise brings in her expertise as a practitioner who will help you with recovering from pelvic floor, from your postnatally, right? And another colleague who is a lactation consultant, and together both of you are like a force to reckon with, that we're parceling to moms or people who want to access it during a very critical time in their lives. Francoise, why do you want to be part of something like that?
It's absolutely phenomenal. Like you started when we were talking about when you were first a mum, and you're so right. What a challenging, it's the most beautiful time in life. It is to bring a child into the world, but it is probably the loneliest, most challenging time. If I think back to my firstborn and those first few months, it was terrifying and I was so lonely. And we didn't, I had no idea there was such a thing as a lactation specialist.
No,
and
I didn't
struggled
either.
with him. I only fed him for 3 months and that was it. It was such a challenging time. I don't even think I even knew I had a pelvic floor. Obviously I did because I was a fitness trainer, but like I had no connection to that. There was so little information and it was an incredibly lonely place. And if I hadn't been surrounded by the incredible women that I've been blessed with in the last 5 years, I wouldn't even have been in the position to start any other movement, as you put it. So to be part of Health Mary, where it's women supporting women and sharing information and giving support, what an incredible shift that will have for motherhood and for women in general, because we're all mothers in some capacity, whether we had children or not, because as women we're generally caring and empathetic and nurturing and it is about a community. And there was some stage in lifetimes where we were parts of community, like where you missed out, where your mum came and looked after the kids, because that is what community is. And in most westernized world, and certainly in the UK, we're not. We have our babies and we're shoved between four walls and we're just expected to cope whilst looking on social media. And it looks like everyone else is coping fine, so I best just get on with it.
And here's a book.
Yeah. And here's a book. And here's a leaflet.
Yes.
Right? Yeah, absolutely. Whereas having something where you can actually access information, because the first point is in our heads, to know that there's information out there and it's with relatable women, it offers that safe space to be able to ask questions and reach out and get support.
I want to ask you, how do you, because you project a lot of power, how do you keep yourself strong and nourished and empowered yourself?
My true secret weapon is the other women around me. It is the women around me. It really, really is. I pick up my phone, I blurb to my friend who are just there to pick me back up again and to be vulnerable, to talk about what's actually bothering me, and something that women really struggle with, and I've got so much better at doing, asking for help. As women, we do not ask for help. And we just think we're expected to just soldier on and carry on, and we don't accept it. Because if anybody says, let me give you a hand, you're like, no,
I'm okay, I'm fine.
When you're dying inside, we don't ask for advice, we don't ask for help, and we don't accept the help. And that was the true turning point, was when I realized I had women around me that truly loved me and cared for me and would do anything for me without an expectation, and being able to reciprocate that, because it's a two-way game.
It's a two-way.
And I think that in life, whether it is, if you do something for me, Chinwe, it doesn't mean I need to reciprocate directly to you, because you're doing something for me without an expectation, but Lou might do something for you when you're in need, and we need to need to have that culture of we're all in this together, we're all here to help each other, and it's an energetic exchange. So I know that if somebody helps me, I may be able to help somebody else down the line. And as women or as mums, we forget that. We just think we need to give, look after, but I have to stay strong and keep it together. And I've learned in my vulnerability of I can't do all of this on my own. I need people around me. And
it's not a sign of weakness to ask for help,
absolutely
is it?
not.
But we see it
a sign
as
of strength, actually.
We've failed.
Absolutely.
But actually it isn't. It's a sign of strength to ask for help.
Yeah.
From the perspective of a woman in business and who's running her healthcare practice and running your own family as well, what is your definition of success? What's your benchmark? Do you have a benchmark, or do you have a vision about what that would look like? I think you're already successful, by the way, because the moment you're manifesting any goodness in the world and putting it out there to meaningfully help people, that for me is baseline success. But are you looking forward? What is your version of the next step, next level?
When I look at my children and I see how they present themselves in the world, I've succeeded at something. When I have these conversations, I had this woman who joined my course not very long ago, actually. And every now and then, I do regularly look to see where everybody is at, because if they've invested in the course, I want them to get results from it. So I keep an eye on it, and I'll nudge somebody who I can see you've not logged on. What's going on? And this woman had flown through. So I thought, let me just check in. Like, did she just lay in bed watching them all? Her email back to me and the results that she's had blew me away. I read it at least 3 or 4 times, and that is success. Knowing that I've given somebody something that they can work on for the rest of their lives. Because if she had to stop the course today and never look at my content again, she should have learned enough. She's done it enough that it will have impacted her for the rest of her life.
And guess who else will benefit from that? Her daughter, her friends, her mum, because she now knows what to do, and if she doesn't know what to tell them, she knows where to find the help. She knows she's got your number and she can always share it. So,
or even just knows about hypopressive, because
anyway,
hopefully it will keep growing, and she'll find another practitioner, and she'll find somebody else who's teaching it, because hopefully it will keep on spreading. Knowledge
is power, as they say. Having that knowledge. Have you
read any books recently that you like?
I have read quite a few books that I like, but one that I love the opportunity to talk about is The 4 Agreements. It's by Don Miguel Ruiz, and to me, it's like a Bible.
Did you bring it today? Is that what's there? Let's have a look. Oh, it's a small one. Perfect. I'm only rejoicing it's a small one, because I plan to read all of the books that all of our guests have recommended. So, this is cool. The 4 Agreements.
And it's about what?
What is it about?
Give us a pricing.
So the 4 Agreements, it is the principles that I try and live my life by. And that's why I think this book is so powerful. And if only they taught this in school, what a better world we'd be in.
Life skills. Wonderful.
The 4 agreements are, the first one is be impeccable with your word. Our word is like magic. If I looked at you today, Lou, and I said, you look amazing, absolutely stunning. You're just glowing. You look healthy. It's like I've put a spell on you.
Exactly.
You're setting out through the day feeling absolutely amazing. If I had said, you're looking a bit pale, are you sure you're feeling okay? The likelihood is by the end of the day, you're like, actually,
I feel rubbish. Yeah.
Maybe I'm coming down with something. Where the words we spin and the words we say, whether they're out loud to somebody else or within ourselves, are very powerful. So being impeccable with the word and what we say out loud or say to ourselves can have a huge impact on everything. The second agreement is take nothing personally.
Oh, that's so hard.
Isn't it just?
It's hard.
So hard.
That's a hard one.
It's so hard. I had to tattoo it on my hand. Nothing personal. Once you crack that one, it's the second agreement. Be impeccable with your word is the first one. But for me, take nothing personally is probably the most important one. The peace that has brought to my life is indescribable.
Have you managed that?
Mostly, which ties into the last agreement. So that's the second agreement. The third agreement is make no assumptions, which ties nicely to take nothing personally, because we often take things personally because we made an assumption.
True.
Because you could have looked at me funny, but actually you're just looking at me funny because something went through your head and something flew by, and I'm thinking, why did Lou look at me like what's going? And before we know it, by using our word, we've created this whole story and taken every single thing personally. So make no assumptions. And the fourth agreement is always do your best. Because some days I'm brilliant at it and nobody can bother me. Other days, I'm taking everything personally.
The imposter syndrome is there.
Oh,
it's
my
real.
goodness. And I've spun a few webs in my head of how bad I am. And who am I thinking that I can even have a business or empower anyone with anything? So, those 4 agreements. Being able to calmly try and take every thought and every action from them brings a lot of peace, because you realize that no one's out to get us. At least, and it is really just about our own.
Quite true. It's your own.
It's the only reality. It's our own reality that we've created. And yes, it's such a powerful book, and it can really bring you true happiness, because once you cut out taking things personally and making assumptions like we do on a minute by minute basis, really does just change. It's life changing.
Being gentle with yourself then, isn't it?
Speaking of being gentle with yourself, I have this being gentle with yourself moment on most nights with my 11-year-old daughter. It's funny you said that, or being gentle with yourself, because that's the way I talk to her about it.
We're on that wavelength.
And we stand in front of the mirror in my bathroom on most nights, and we do our facial with our skincare, our newly discovered skincare product. So in terms of being gentle with yourself, I think that skincare routines, for instance, and any routine you self-care yourself is really important, right? So what's your favorite one to do, and with what products do you generally do it with?
So having a routine to begin with is very important, but having a routine, unfortunately, the personal care industry is laden with a lot of toxic products where it's not actually good for our health or our well-being. So the first thing is again about that education of understanding what is out there. Just like we know with food, we've got a lot more information out there about food and what we put in our body. Yes, we've got the option then with the knowledge to whether we choose to do it or not. Like I say, I'm a chocoholic through and through, and I make that choice sometimes. I'm just having to have the whole slab of chocolate. It's that understanding. So the first thing is understanding what we do put in our personal environment, and there are some amazing resources out there that can educate you. Like Think Dirty is an app, again, that helps you to rate the products and helps to educate you on what we're actually using. So I'm a huge advocate for toxic-free or clean products, especially if you're starting with young girls. Because when the young girls and boys are going through that hormonal shift, they're far more susceptible to the influence of endocrine disruptors, which are
all
high in personal care products. Our skin absorbs everything. So yes, the self-care and the time to make the self-care is important. If you can do that with your children, even great, because you're teaching them again that skill. But educating yourself as to what sort of products you're using. And the industry of natural skincare is growing. I'm part of the fastest growing skincare company, Tropic Skincare, and Susie Ma, the founder, have again absolutely inspired me, empowered me, and taught me all these things, because I was the same. I was walking around not being aware of what I put on my skin. And there are going to be other amazing companies that are keeping up with how fast Tropic are growing. But again, it comes back down to that knowledge and understanding that if you can't read what's on the label, because the true ingredients are written in Latin, I think, and nobody understands that. But find ways of being able to understand what you're putting on you, because you wouldn't grab a packet of food that you couldn't identify and then just eat it. Yet we're putting that on our personal environment every single day. So again, coming right back through to that knowledge and education, that's what's really important to me.
Tropics is good, right? And I say that they're not paying me to say this, to be honest. Honestly, I'm saying it because I know that, again, if I have experienced something positive, we all in a way have a responsibility to share it, right? So my daughter, last night actually, she said to me, this is so good. Let's do it. We call it, let's do it, Francoise. Sorry, Francoise. But that's what she says. Let's do it, Francoise. And then last night she said to me, this feels good because it's all clean product. And I know it's clean, mommy, because I've had it in my eye 2 or 3 times and it doesn't sting. I was like, wait, first of all, you're not supposed to get anything in your eyes. But she was like, it doesn't, like, she doesn't feel anything because it's, I was like, okay, all right. After I got over the fact that she'd had product in her eyes, but I did reflect that actually I felt so good that we were having this moment together and that it was clean. I wasn't worrying about what's got in her eyes, what's being absorbed in her skin. And it just made the whole process very elevating. I felt really, really good knowing that we were doing this with a really clean product, you know. One thing that did surprise me though, sorry, I keep knocking my microphone, was how affordable they were, right? Because I kind of assumed that it would be expensive, but they're not.
No, they're not. They're it's designed to be affordable, as well as we have a happiness guarantee that if it doesn't suit you, you've got 30 days to get a full refund or exchange for something else that does suit you.
Remember how skeptical I was when you were telling me?
You were such a tough cookie. You're like, no, I like my routine. You're like, but maybe I'll let my daughter use it.
That's exactly what I said. Yeah, she can try it, but I was so set in what I did up until now, you know, because and then you're right. It's just that additional feel good feeling, knowing that actually this self-care routine is real self-care. I will kind of end today's episode with just a quick reflection about this box, right? Which is the Health Mary Baby Pack box. And if you buy one of these boxes, you will get an instant connection with Francoise, along with Savannah, who's the lactation consultant on there. You will also get a few treats in there. This is a lovely candle, natural candle, organically sourced, and our little affirmation book in here, because I think we all need reminders that, you know, that we should love ourselves, and it's just a lovely read that comes in the box. It's on the Health Mary Heart stores. So I say stores as if they are stores. It's an online store where if you have a friend or a daughter or someone or a partner who's just had a baby, what an amazing gift to get them. That would just be amazing. Francoise, beyond grateful to have you here. I'm absolutely grateful that you've come to the podcast. You've inspired and educated all of us today.
Absolutely.
Isn't it? Right? Thank you so much. Keep doing what you're doing, right? Because although it's not the glamorous situation or condition, you're doing it anyway. And I think that is beyond inspirational. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well done. Thank you. Amazing.
Go get my amazing co-host. This has been the first season of Beyond 9 to 5, and it's just been, amazing. It's been amazing.
Yeah, we've had such a lovely time. Another lovely journey.
Yeah. Please share, subscribe, like, because if you do, we are able to bring these inspirational stories and journeys to more people. I will see you next time. But in the meantime, keep your purpose front and center. And let that passion keep burning brightly. Don't let it flicker away. Keep going. You've got this, girl. Time.